the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. And we pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Thank you. Please be seated. For observers of in the gallery, I welcome members of the community and staff and ask you to observe in respectful silence as those in the chamber deliberate on matters that relate to City of Burnside. Should there be a fire or any other emergency, the alarm will sound and you are asked to follow instructions of council staff. I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the council's website and a copy of the agenda is also available by downloading it from this website. I remind elected members to use their microphones appropriately so that those at home can hear the debate clearly. And finally, please turn off your mobile phones or switch them to silent. We have one apology from Councillor Carbone and we have a leave of absence from Councillor Cornish. And I will take this moment to, on behalf of Council here, welcome our staff who are sitting in that section of the Council gallery. They are our LGMA Challenge team, and I believe they're here to see how we operate and get some hints and tips on that will prepare them for their competition next month, I think it is. All right, now, confirmation of minutes. I need someone to move, please. Councillor Dawes, and seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Carried. Okay, we have a request for a deputation, and it's about the parking near Linden Park Pharmacy and Post Office. It did come in too late for me to agree to it without asking you as a council if you are willing to listen to that deputation. So I need an indication of hands as to whether you support hearing the deputation. Thank you very much indeed. So, Mr. Hutchinson, would you like to come to the centre chair here? I'm not sure if it's been explained to you. It doesn't matter. You will have 5 minutes. There'll be a warning bell at 4 minutes. And then if you wouldn't mind remaining afterwards in case there are people who have some questions. And I know that when you emailed me, you were more concerned about people having questions. So thank you for coming along. And if you turn that speak button on, you should be fine.
Perfect. Thank you to the council for allowing me to speak, and I apologise for the lack of procedural following. I'm not familiar with this, but I just thought it might speed things up if I give you just a brief background to the petition, which is regarding the parking at the pharmacy and post office at the top of Devereux Road, this set of shops there, cafe, Spill the Beans, the doctors. Basically, based on the feedback that I've been getting for years from my customers, there is a significant parking issue, that being that people can't get a park. In summary, we predominantly have longer term parking, whether it be 2-hour or untimed parking. And I guess I probably feel, along with my customers, that some short term, just maybe a couple of shorter parks to get some turnover happening, just to facilitate the other types of business that would benefit from that. I have actually tried to address this through the channels of the regular council. The problem I probably have is that there's not an acknowledgement that there is a problem. I think the council's told me that based on their observations and their own feedback, there's not a problem. So that was basically the reason for the petition, was just for myself to get some feedback, to see what customers, people that are using the complex think. I must admit I was quite overwhelmed. I think, it was less than 2 weeks. We had over 200 signatures. In the 10 days since, I've had probably almost as many people, some quite upset with me that I didn't give them a chance to sign it. So I guess initially, basically, I I'm just trying to seek some acknowledgement that there is possibly a problem there, and hope to move forward. And I think in the immediate vicinity there's around about 40 car parks on the surrounding roads. So surely I feel there's a little bit of room there to maybe, in addition to what we already have, maybe a couple of 10 or 15 minute parks just to get some quicker turnover. So I guess that's what the petition's about, just to highlight that issue and see if we can just possibly move forward and address it from there. And I'm happy to take questions on the issue as well.
Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for coming along tonight. I didn't catch your name and where you're from.
So I'm Tim Hutchison from Linden Park Pharmacy and Post Office. We're at the top of Devereux Road, just past the bowling green.
Next to Dulwich's.
Yeah, Dulwich's. So Dulwich is in that complex there.
And have you actually spoken to our staff about this and had some discussions and an assessment of the area?
Well, I have. The issue was addressed about 3 years ago, but it was driven by customers, and I obviously supported their views. And at that time, 3 30-minute parks and a 10-minute park was implemented. Prior to Christmas, a disabled park was put in and it replaced the 10-minute park. So now we're back to just 3 30-minute parks, and that's probably just stirred things up a little bit as far as the feedback I'm getting. So so I mentioned that maybe a month ago to council. I've tried to do it through those channels, but the response I get is that once again their own monitoring and their own feedback is that there's not an issue. So I guess I was hoping that the volume of the petition would suggest that there might be an issue.
So what are you after? Are you after more parking?
Well, no, not necessarily more. Maybe a better mix of parking, so some shorter term. I had put a suggestion forward, which basically was in addition to what we have, 2 10 or 15-minute parks. Yes, but...
Thank you. Councillor Hubel.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Hutchison. I pick up packages from that post office semi-regularly, so yes. I am entirely sympathetic with your position. Do you see, I guess, anecdotally, people that would leave their cars there perhaps during the day because it's a bit more sheltered, as opposed to people that are parking, riding? Are you seeing the same sorts of cars that are there all the time?
So I think that is one aspect of it, but it's not necessarily. I don't think it's city parkers catching the bus. I think one of the issues is the bowling club, which I fully support. I'm a major sponsor.
Yep.
But I think on a warm bowling day, or if there's bridge, a lot of those people do find the trees, the shade of the building in the afternoon, a better place to park, and they'll wander down. And also, even just in the summer evenings, or mornings, there'll be a practice bowling session, and people will only be there for 2 hours, but it is fully utilising those 2 hour, or even on Hay Road, some of those Williams Crescent on the southern end, those unrestricted time parks, which I can appreciate, but, for people that are going to park there long term, it's sort of, my view is that maybe if they could be encouraged to park a little bit further away from the prime turn through. And just picking up on the post office thing, there's a real difference in transaction type. Our business is post, it's parcels, paying a bill, it's quick transaction, whereas obviously other businesses have that long, maybe sit down for 2 hours or... So I guess I'm just trying to get that balance back a little bit so that people that want to quickly grab something can do so with a little bit more ease. Or a little bit more surety that if they do a couple of laps, they're going to get a park. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Toom.
Hello, Tim.
Hey, Jenny.
My family, we identify with the problem because we use your pharmacy a lot. And actually, you are the most speedy pharmacist I know. So maybe have 2-minute parks. Only being silly. No.
Well,
but, thank you for that. But parking over on Devereux Terrace, because it's always full, especially Saturday mornings, it's horrible because when you're frail and aged, got a bad back like me, getting across that road's not fun. My question also was about the access from the Beaumont Bowling Club.
Yep.
I know some of them park there. So
yes.
Where's the ranger? Because or some way of making this sort of not happen. My other question is, what's the time when there are the least parks, when it's the busiest time?
So, last question first. The lease parks is probably from about 9 o'clock through until sort of after lunch. I get a lot of people at the door at 8:30 or even before, and I'm there trying to get in early before the parks fill up. And also late in the afternoon, people are changing their habits especially like you mentioned, frail people that just can't get near. So yeah, it's probably 9 to 11, and I just pick up what you mentioned about frail people. I mean, it's not uncommon to have people go to the doctor in the morning, drive past, can't get a park. A lot of our clientele are elderly, sprightly but elderly, and they'll make a decision occasionally to drive past, go home and not get medication dispensed because they just, they can't walk the extra 50 metres uphill or back. So there is that aspect to it as well.
Yes, yes, I was just wondering about that one too with the disabled people. The disabled car park space, whenever I go there, it's empty. I'm so tempted, but it's so crass to use it, really.
Well, the disabled space is actually, that was the 10-minute space, and I can appreciate that when the request was put in for the disabled space, I don't understand it intimately, but the council, the people building it explained to me that it needs to have a ramp, it needs to be a wheelchair ramp on the curbing, and I can understand that made the most sense, I guess, work-wise. It was the least amount of work to put that car park there, but there was no replacement of the 10-minute park. When I raised that immediately at the time, I was generally, I can't recall the exact words, but told to the effect that let's just see how it settles. And then subsequently I've been told that I was the only one of 11 businesses that wanted to retain a 10-minute park. That it was suggested that everyone was in favour of losing the 10-minute park, but I don't think that's the case. I think whatever surveying or feedback has been sought, it may not be quite that robust. It might be a little bit more informal and then that's now being used as the basis to sort of reject any suggestion of there being an issue. So hence the petition for feedback and, yeah.
Well, I'm with you. I'd like to see this sorted out so that I can park closer.
Thank you. And it does put me under pressure, the time of the park. A lot of people used to love that 10-minute park and tell me you've got about 8 minutes left to get me out the door. Sorry, and you also mentioned the ranger. I fully support monitoring parking, but one of the issues has been the ranger has possibly just been coming through maybe once on an occasion and booking the people that are in the disabled park, parked on a yellow line, I guess you'd call it the low-hanging fruit, rather than doing the marking of cars and maybe coming back in 30 minutes or 2 hours to check. But that's just an anecdotal observation. I have no evidence to support that, but that's just what I've observed and the feedback that I've received as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Can I move to the next item as a formal motion? I think everyone agrees with it. Everyone's great. We all agree with you. We're all on board, and I think we'll be here for a long time.
Yes.
It makes sense to me. I don't think that we need to really debate this for another 20 minutes. We have a motion to. Do I need to do that, or is it coming?
This is actually not a time where formal motions operate. So, Councillor Jones, can I ask you to speak briefly? Thank you.
Chairman, thank you for coming.
Sure.
First of all, a bit of a mea culpa. The disability space might have been partly my fault because I did advocate on behalf of a constituent who wanted a disability space, said he found it impossible to park near the pharmacy, but I fully support getting more 10-minute parks. You mentioned there's 11 other businesses. What do they think?
Varying feedback. Look, I think the reality is a lot of them aren't owner-operated, and when someone sticks their door in, so I'm trying to be quick, sticks their head in and says, "Are you happy with everything? Thumbs up." Everyone just, everyone's busy, says, "Yep." So since the petition, I've had other businesses come to me, disappointed they couldn't be a part of a broader petition. I didn't want to create an issue. It was just purely from my own business. I think probably half the people don't care. They're not high turnover businesses. Probably half don't care. Some do care in my view, and there may be a couple that would like untimed parking everywhere. I don't know. But the ones that have come to me have sort of suggested that they would benefit, specifically the doctors as well, getting people in and out, aunties dropping off auntie to the doctor and coming back. But nothing formal. I haven't, cool.
I think you can hear there's very good support for you. So thank you very much for coming in, and we'll now move on to the next. So if you just turn that microphone off, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Well played.
Happy to move 7.
Now we move to the petition itself.
To move the motion. I'm happy to
So I'm
And
happy.
looking for, Councillor Hughes, you wish
happy
to
to move the motion,
You don't
yes.
wish to speak to it?
I do not wish to speak. I think
Okay,
we've
and
heard
it's
lots.
seconded by Councillor Davis.
Yep.
You happy for it to go ahead without any speaking? All right, thank you very much. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'm not aware of anyone having a question for public question time, so I shall move to questions on notice. There are none. Questions and motions on notice, there are none. Same with questions without notice, I hope. So we can move on. And now I'm going to work through the reports of officers. No, we're going to do the presentation from Trees of Light. I asked for that one. I'd like to welcome to our chamber Natasha Davis, who is the CEO of Trees for Life. And she has brought with her a large group of people who are volunteers from Trees for Life. And we welcome them to Burnside Council and thank them particularly for all the work that they do, not only in our council area, but in other council areas. In fact, I bumped into one of your volunteers only yesterday morning up at one of the reserves. So thank you for coming along.
There we are. Is that good now? So my name's Natasha Davis. I'm the CEO of Trees for Life, and I'll just give you a little bit of background about Trees for Life and then go into more detail about Bush for Life and some other complementary activities that we're running in the city of Burnside. David Edwards here is a Stevenson, sorry, long-term volunteer, and he will finish the presentation by talking a little bit about his personal experience, which I think is often what is most interesting to hear, is why people do this really important work. And I'd just like to also say thank you to the amazing volunteers who've come along tonight. So Trees for Life, any of you familiar with our work, Trees for Life? Yes. So we've nearly 40 years operating in South Australia. We're really about getting fantastic on-ground outcome to help protect our environment and work with landholders of all types, shapes and forms, particularly farming communities all around the state, as well as working in urban areas like the city of Burnside. Our motto is about on-ground action, but very much about facilitating community involvement and empowerment. So you can see there, we've got a vision, I guess, to really increase the ownership and participation amongst South Australians in nature conservation. Bush for Life has been operating since 1994, and it was started by some Trees for Life staff and volunteers who realised that it's important to not just put new trees and shrubs and ground covers back in the landscape. We need to protect what we already have. And there's some very precious remnants of native bushland remaining. As many of you would be aware, the amount of remnant vegetation in the Mount Lofty Ranges is very small compared with what was originally there. So it's really important that we do protect what we have. So rather than having it all done by contractors and staff, this program works by empowering the community and training and supporting and working alongside community members so that they can get their hands dirty and learn about our beautiful bush, but also be involved in protecting it. So it has been a very successful program. It's worked for a long time, and it's the passionate volunteers who are really at the heart of the success of the program, but also having so many partners like yourselves. But we have 20 council partners across the broader Adelaide region and up into the hills. It's very important that the staff are there to support the volunteers, and so both technical support and also that, I guess, working alongside and troubleshooting things. And yeah, for those reasons it has been a very long successful model. We have a number of partners, and council contributions are about 50%, but the Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges Natural Resource Management Board's been an important long-term partner. As we move into the new landscape boards, we're a little bit uncertain how things will work with Green Adelaide and the Hills and Fleurieu board, because the Bush for Life sites are going to be split across that. We've had a big chunk of funding from the Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges board. Now they will be split between Hills and Fleurieu and Green Adelaide. So we're sort of working hard to try and make sure we can secure funding from that source into the future. So the scope of activity is big. We do work across 4 NRM regions. We've really only had funding from the Adelaide Mount Lofty, but we do have some sites in the Northern York region, in the SA Murray-Darling Basin region, and we've even got a couple of sites on Eyre Peninsula. It's quite impressive in terms of the number of people involved and the amount of effort that is put in through those volunteers. And there's a map of our sites. So in Burnside, we have 9 sites, a couple of those areas, and I'll actually pass around a map so you can have a look. And there's about 4 sites represented here tonight, I think, at least that, from the people who are here. So, not a small but very enthusiastic and committed group of volunteers who are working there. In addition to these regular volunteers, we also bring other groups of volunteers through corporates and others that come and participate. So as well as having the site carer model, so people can adopt a site, and everyone here has a site that they care for and go out on a regular basis to care for. We also run team days where you don't have to sign up to ongoing commitment, and that has been growing in popularity. As I guess many people want to dip in and out of volunteering, so they want to come along. Those days are always supervised by staff, but across South Australia we have about 1,000 participants each year, so and some of those will come to Burnside. This is Heatherbank. Now who's our Heatherbank? Yes, so this is a photo I discovered. So a lot of what we're doing in Bush for Life is, well, it's essentially about removing the weeds so that the native plants can flourish. So it's like gardening, but in the bushland. So a lot of, as many of you will be aware, so we've brought a lot of invasive plants to this country, and there's a lot of invasive animals as well. So Burnside has a lot of olives, for example, which are fantastic when they're in the right place, and I'm certainly an olive lover and olive oil consumer. But in our native bushland, they can do a lot of damage, and basically they crowd out the natives. So what we're trying to do is maintain and encourage diversity of our native species, and therefore helping provide really good improved biodiversity, improve habitat for a whole range of different birds and other native animals. So here you can see more of a monoculture on the left of olives, and on the right, through really careful, slow and steady work. It is slow and steady, and it can take a long time to see changes, but people who've been working for a long time do see quite dramatic changes. And often removing the weeds and the natives, we don't have to do any planting. The natives come back. There's often a seed bank of grasses and other understory species in the soil that are just waiting for a chance to come back to life. So there's these biodiversity benefits and on-ground benefits, but there's also enormous social benefits for people who participate. And we regularly hear people talk about, they come along, they start because of the environment, but they keep coming back because of the people. So we've got, I think the long-term nature of many participants is testament to that fact that, like a lot of our volunteering efforts, people love the connecting with other like-minded people and that sense of doing something really worthwhile. People that have been involved in office life all their lives, sometimes retire, like to spend more time outside, and then those who have a natural passion for the environment also have a way they can get involved in a long-term, meaningful way. So as well as Bush for Life, over the last few years we've started to think about how we can take this model and offer it in different ways and to different audiences. So I'll just talk briefly about some of the different activities we've offered. Regenerate has been operating for about 4 years, and that really started by us thinking about the mental health benefits of spending time in nature and also from volunteering. So we have started discussions with a number of mental health service providers, and we wanted to offer an opportunity for people who, for whatever reason, not necessarily able to participate in a mainstream program. So we've been able to offer a program there for a number of years. So we have groups like from Novita, Catherine House, etc., who come out, and we tailor activities so that they're very much designed to make sure they're safe and welcoming, and often smaller groups. We provide lunch. So we've had some funding once again from the Adelaide Mount Lofty Rangers NRM board, and we're hoping we'll be able to continue that into the future. And the range of activities that we've been doing there have expanded, includes propagation and other things, nature walks. Stepping stones into nature also evolved from us thinking about the new arrivals into our community in Australia. So we did some research a few years ago, and one of the things that really struck us, which it makes sense, but people who've come to Australia from a very different natural environment feel could feel quite intimidated by bushland. It's quite different. Obviously, when our first settlers arrived, they felt intimidated by bushland, which is why we have so many roses and olives and things. So we looked at ways we could work with that community once again, not just coming up with our own ideas. We wanted to work with organisations that are supporting new arrivals to design some activities that would help people new to Australia feel comfortable. So we've had meet animal days and family days and nature walks and things like that. And I remember reading sometime, you have quite a high proportion of new arrivals in Burnside too. So, you know, most communities in South Australia now experiencing that. So yeah, I guess thinking about ways we can help them, introduce them to the community, so it's both the people but also the nature, I think, is also really important, that sense of place that we get from feeling it comfortable and at one, and also finding out ways they can participate in local community activities. We've got a significant program running this year up in Murray Bridge that's had funding there, and we're working with the Chinese community in that area. We've also got a range of different school engagement activities and, as I said, family nature events. So there we are. That's we had Animals Anonymous come to one of our nature walks and showed them different animals, and then we have had bushwalks and a range of different activities. Nature in the suburbs, I'll pass that map around. Nature in the suburbs is a partnership with Burnside Council, which initially came about through some meetings with staff at Burnside Council who wanted, Burnside Village were interested in looking at a way they could participate in community activities in the city of Burnside, in particular looking at ways they could facilitate people to connect with nature. So this is, for over 2 years, we've run a few different activities with them which they've supported. So that's given people another way to get involved in the city of Burnside, and you know, hopefully some of those people over time might participate in Bush for Life and other volunteering activities. So that's all from me, and I'll hand over to David. So I guess I just want to conclude by saying I'm greatly appreciative of the support of Burnside Council. I think it's a really great partnership. It's a long-term partnership, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to continue with Bush for Life, but also to look at other ways we can support people to connect with nature, both for social and community wellbeing as well as for the wellbeing of our precious environment. And we know how important it is to residents in your area.
Thank you very much, and it's good for people to come and be able to listen to your presentation this evening too. Could you just turn your speaker on? Thank you.
Yeah, my name's David Stevenson. I am a Burnside Council resident, but I've been a volunteer bush carer for just over 18 years at a Bush for Life site, which is a Burnside Council reserve, or on a Burnside Council reserve at Wattle Park. It's called Stone Mine North. I've always been interested in plants, especially Australian native plants, but I've probably got an even stronger dislike of weeds. I did an ag science degree. Well, I should say that there's other volunteers here tonight I haven't met before. I'd love to catch up with them, but we've all got different stories to tell, and I'm sure that their stories are probably just as interesting or more interesting than mine, but yeah, this is my story. So I did an agricultural science degree at Adelaide University, and so I did botany in first and second year, and then got into more agricultural subjects. After graduating and being in the workforce for 3 years, I got a job in the weed research unit in South Australian Department of Agriculture. And so I've been involved with weed biology and control in some form ever since. I worked for 7 years up in the Mount Lofty Ranges for what they were then called animal and plant control boards, and dealing with noxious weed control and pests like foxes and rabbits. And then they were amalgamated into the Natural Resources Management Boards, which Natasha's talked about, and now they're in the process of becoming landscape boards. But that position in the Mount Lofty Ranges had not as much focus on the agricultural weeds that I was used to. It was much more focus on what's called environmental weeds, like things like blackberries and gorse and bridal creeper and feral olives and declared weeds that landholders have an obligation to control. I did a postgraduate diploma in natural resources management in that job, and I was constantly trying to more motivate the landholders to control those environmental weeds. And so I thought I should practice what I'm preaching, and that's how and why when and why I decided to join Bush for Life. And as I said, I've been doing it for 18 years now. I enjoy doing something sort of positive for the environment and the community. As Natasha said, it's good to be working outdoors. I enjoy meeting like-minded people who also have a commitment to the environment. And I enjoy seeing what's happening on my Bush for Life side as the weeds get removed and the native species recover. And from a personal point of view, I'd like to thank Burnside Council and Mark Ellis for the work that the council's done at our site. You know, it was formerly an olive orchard, and so there's been a lot of heavy work getting rid of the olives, which is good from our point of view, and me and the other volunteers, we can come along and just work on controlling all the regrowth, because weed control is not just a one-off activity. There's lots of work in follow-up afterwards. Stonewine North's quite a picturesque site up in the foothills, up at Wattle Park. It's very therapeutic working up there. You can sit up there amongst the vegetation and look out right across the city out to the Gulf. There's a couple of walking paths through there, and there's echidnas up there. I haven't actually seen them, but you can see evidence when you're working up there. And a little boy came along once with his family along the walking track, and he was so excited because he'd seen an echidna out in the wild. And I thought then that, if the work we're doing can help people like that have experiences in nature like that, then we're doing a good thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. From the floor. Councillor?
Thanks very much for coming along tonight. It's very interesting work, and thank you very much for all that you do to contribute to returning our foothills in particular, and Hills Face Zone to its original vegetation. Do you think with a lot of the weeds that proliferate, we could be using goats for those? I saw a program on TV recently where they were using goats. It was a really organised land management program, and they actually used goats in areas to eat the weeds, which then made it easier for volunteers to come in and plant up. Is that something your group works on?
Do you want me to take that one?
You can, so I could say something.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to go first? Or I'll just say we haven't worked with goats. I mean, there are lots of different weed control methods. I guess the challenge is making sure they don't eat the natives as well. Because I have heard a Bush for Life carer talking about a goat visiting their site, actually. So where was that in particular? It was an ABC program. Yeah, okay. Something that they were doing in Victoria. Yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm personally not a ecologist, so I'd probably want to talk to our technical specialists on that and see if they've heard of that and how it would operate in this particular environment. Often, I think when there's one particular, I don't think olives would be the go. I doubt they'd chew down an olive tree. But yeah, I know that often it is important to keep livestock on sites to help manage weed control.
Councillor Hubel.
Look, I didn't have a question as such, but I did just want to say thank you for coming in and letting us know all about this, and also thank you to the work you're doing. It's invaluable. Thanks.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. It's exciting to hear that we have echidnas in a suburb, which is fantastic, and I hope that's remnant native vegetation we have, or could become remnant native vegetation. Is that correct? It is, right. That's really, really special. So the main question I had was, the council surveys all the residents and ratepayers, and one of the themes is youth engagement, you know, things for teenagers, youth to do. Have you done programs? I think some of these programs sound like they are about outcomes with youth engagement. Can you just perhaps give us an example or confirm that? Thank you.
Yes, so we've had some family activities, but they're probably not quite so much what you have in mind there. We are about to, I think, start a project with a high school at Chambers Gully, looking at a possibility there. So that can be a potential bit of a pilot to see how that works. There are some concerns with Bush for Life with involving, you know, typically it's been an adults program just because of getting the supervision, and can be chemical use at times, and the fine nature. You don't want kids going around sort of trampling and mucking around, but I totally, you know, I think there's some great opportunities there, and getting kids out in nature has so many benefits all round. So it's definitely something we're keen to keep exploring.
Excellent.
But I've worked in school education programs before, and I know they have to be really well designed to get good outcomes, both for the environment and for the students themselves.
Very good, very good. And yes, it was good to hear about the newcomers kind of familiarising. I remember I had a person from France visiting at my property in the hills. It's remnant vegetation, and they were actually frightened to step out of the car. They just thought, wow, we don't want to get out there and step on a snake. So that was, quite enlightening.
I totally agree. The snake, I've sat down to a Chinese woman the same. She said, I love driving around looking at the autumn leaves, but I won't get out of the car.
No,
it's like this idea that there's sort of, you know, wild beast snakes, obviously, is one of the big things.
Yeah.
But
There we go. Thank you so much. Good night.
Councillor Turnbull.
Just the flyer that you gave out, are these separate events from you, or is the Burnside Council involved in them?
no, Burnside Council's not actively involved, but I guess you know, helping to promote them potentially. But they're Trees for Life, but we're running those with separate funding from Burnside Village, so it's enabled
Are
us.
you hoping to promote a partnership with the Burnside Council, or?
Oh, we absolutely do. I'm just bringing that as an example of a different program. No, I mean, all our activities that are with Burnside Council are branded with Burnside Council on them. So if we're promoting any activities that are Bush for Life activities in Burnside, they're certainly promoted with Burnside Council. This is a separate program that's funded by Burnside Village. Yeah, sorry, that's why I'm saying that we've got these complementary programs. I guess we've got a range of other partners that will mean we can offer other programs to your residents.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. And I think it complements what we were talking about last week with our last council meeting when we approved our Canopy Action Plan and our vision for later in the year with a tree week and the tree festival so we're looking forward to hopefully you being involved with that.
Yes, I was very excited to read about the Tree Festival. I also sit on the National Trust Natural Heritage Committee, so I'm aware of the amazing work you've done with your tree website. That's absolutely fantastic to get people getting ownership over their local street trees.
But again, it all comes back to volunteers, so thank you very much again, all of you who are here today, who represent a much, much larger group. So thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Natasha. And I've forgotten your name? David. I should remember that one.
And I'll just
thank you very
pass
much.
around
It's my husband's name.
December newsletter for anyone who'd like to take a copy.
Thank you very much,
Thank
all of you for coming. We shall move on now. Now, what I'm going to do is go through everything that's on the pages, and I'm going to ask for people to withdraw or indicate if they wish to withdraw. Councillor Davis, we've got to do the first one anyway, and then so we have to do that because we're part way through that one. Next one is Greenhill Road and Hallett Road. If the idea is that if it does not require anyone to talk to, we'll vote on them straight away. You wish to speak to that one, so it's Councillor Dawes. Operation on Community Land Motion Register. Right, can I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Seconded, Councillor Piggott. All those in favour? Carried. Now we move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report. Is there anyone who wishes to withdraw that one? Councillor Davey. Okay. Eastern Region Alliance Strategic Plan. It's Councillor Davis.
Thank you.
Minutes of the CEO Recruitment Performance Appraisal Committee. Can I have a mover then, please? Councillor Davis, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Jones, sorry. All those in favour? Carried. Mid-year budget report. Right, can I have a mover then? Councillor Davis. Seconded by Councillor Piggott. All those in favour? Carried. Urban Community Reconciliation Plan, well, we have to discuss that, so I'm looking for someone to withdraw that. Councillor Davey. Subsidiaries, East Waste Management Authority. Can I have a mover then, please? Thank you, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hubel. All those in favour? Carried. Nothing from Eastern Health Authority. Highbury Landfill Authority. Councillor Dawes moving, thank you. Councillor Piggott seconding. All those in favour? Carried. Era Water. Councillor Davis, is that your hand up? You would like to move that? Seconded by Councillor Piggott. All those in favour? Carried. That's 4.1. 4.2, 41.2, do we just do them as one? As one? Okay, thank you. Nothing from Era and nothing from Brownhill Creek. Mayor's report. Thank you, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Turnbull. All those in favour? Carried. Reports of members of working delegates and working parties. If you have anything to, anyone have anything to add, otherwise try and get them to Rob as soon as you can, even if it's now. Yes, just better show what's up there. Thanks, Rob. Got to scroll through a bit. Yes? Right, Councillor Hughes moved, seconded Councillor Dawes. No, we don't have to do that. Anyway, carried. Council reports and memorials. Motion to receive and note those, please. Councillor Davey. Sorry? You wish to withdraw the Burnside one, the War Memorial Hospital, is that right? And the correspondence from Mount Barker? No, we can move that one. Thank you, Councillor Piggott, seconded. Councillor Dawes. Those in favour? Carried. Right, now we go back to Regal Theatre. And you want to speak first. And the CEO is going to speak first to this matter, just to make sure we're in the right place, because we had to adjourn the meeting in the middle of the debate on this last council meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as we adjourned, the rules of debate are that those that have spoken to the amendment are noted as have spoken, and therefore that only leaves a certain number of elected members who are able to speak to the amendment that is before us. And if I could just refresh your memories up on screen there, you'll note that the amendment that was moved by Councillor Davey and seconded by Councillor Carbone is a two-part motion on your screen. So the elected members that are able to continue to speak to this motion are Councillor Davis, Councillor Dawes, Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jones and Councillor Turnbull. So essentially, we now recommence the debate from this point in time. Is everyone comfortable with what I've just said? Any questions before we commence the process?
Right, Councillor Davis.
Do you have a question?
Oh, yes, certainly.
You can borrow my call if you want.
Okay. Look, just in regard to we were mid-debating an amendment.
That's correct.
And is there any mechanism, actually, without wishing to linger it too far, that actually people could speak again? Because it strikes me that we had actually covered a fair bit of ground in regard to the amendment, which we hadn't voted on. So,
Not with leave
for instance, I spoke against it, and I'd like the opportunity to do so again.
Speak against it again.
Yeah.
I guess at any time, if a councillor seeks leave of the meeting, they're able to do so.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Do you want to do that?
However, Councillor Davis has his name.
Well, I have an alternative motion, so I'd like unless anybody wants to speak with this, I prefer to vote it down and have another motion, another amendment I'd like to put.
Councillor. Oh, you did?
Because I'm not going to speak now,
All right,
because I have another amendment to make.
okay. But I thought you would have been able to speak to move the amendment, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Well, Henry was wanting to know if he could, instead of speaking, he could just move the amendment.
Yeah.
You could, couldn't you?
If I may, through Madam Mayor, we are picking up the debate as if it never ceased, and Councillor Davis may choose to move an amendment if he so chooses.
But I can't move this amendment, it's a repeat amendment.
You know, you can, at this point in time, you can move an amendment to the amendment.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
That's like, what's that movie, Inception?
But I would remind council that you're only able to move to amendments. So once, if you chose to move an amendment, there will be no further amendments allowed.
Councillor Jones, could you just turn your microphone off, please? And then it's Councillor Davis to speak.
All right, can I Inception it? How does this work though? Are you sure? I know, I'm pretty sure the procedure would be that we vote this down or vote it up, and then I move it to amendment.
It's,
All right.
if I may, just for clarification, Madam Mayor, it's the same process whereby at any point during a debate on a motion, an amendment can be moved.
Right. Okay. Robert. Oh, great. So I'll read it out. My amendment is to change the amendment to approve the Regal Theatre Conservation Management Plan with the removal of Section 9 and commence the preparation and development of the Regal Theatre Precinct Master Plan during the 2021 financial year, noting that the master plan will be subject to community consultation and council approval. I'll speak to that motion. In my view, I didn't quite see the full debate from the last meeting. I skimmed it. But my understanding is that there's been some concern in relation to Section 9 especially, which proposes a whole bunch of things that we could do with the Regal Theatre. And my understanding of the Conservation Management Plan is to essentially set out what we are going to do to preserve the character and maintenance of the building, rather than explore additional uses or additional changes to how the site could be used. So I definitely agree with the Conservation Management Plan as it is, but I think that we should remove Section 9. And I think the more appropriate way and more like a fuller way and more detailed way of exploring what we can do with that site, and I think we as a council, it's such a landmark of the city of Burnside, that we should dedicate our time to preparing a master plan for the precinct and let the administration suggest to us ways that we can make full use out of that site. And I think that we should go down that path and let the community have their engagement and provide us with their views and conduct a master plan in relation to this precinct, which is, of course, such a landmark of the City of Burnside Council. So that's my amendment. I'm hoping for a seconder, and then I assume if it gets up, then the first one lapses. Well, the amendment becomes the amendment, and then we vote again? Oh, anyway.
The amendment.
Yeah, something like that.
So I'm seeking a seconder. Since there is no...
So I'll just provide clarity of the meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So those that have not spoken to the motion are permitted to second this amendment. So Councillor Dawes, you are able to second if you choose.
Can you tell us who else is able to do that?
Certainly, Councillor Dawes, Councillor Jones and Councillor Turnbull. That's it.
So, Councillor Turnbull, you wish to second it?
I'll second that, but I won't speak to it.
Right,
Thank you.
thank you. So, I don't have anyone else. We still have a couple of people who... Councillor Henschke, you've already spoken? Oh, is that right? No, I'm just checking. She has already spoken. She can't speak again, can she?
She can't speak.
No, you've already spoken, so you can't speak again. It's only those other two remaining.
So
We only have Councillor Jones, Councillor Dawes, and Councillor Turnbull has already spoken by seconding and doesn't wish to speak. So On here I have councillor Dawes and then councillor Jones.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a good compromise there from councillor Davis. I guess that from where I sit, I would like the amount of green space not to be reduced. However, I do understand there's a lot of community consultation involved. There's about 4 or 5 concept designs on one of the pages there. But I'm hoping that after that process, that the amount of green space does not get reduced. But I'm still supportive of the amendment.
Councillor Jones?
Sorry. I'm totally confused about this amendment, how it substantively varies councillor Davies' amendment, and whether it's an acceptable variation of an amendment. Does it substantively change the amendment? Which presumably it's not allowed to as an amendment?
The way I'm interpreting this for the benefit of the meeting is that it's providing a further level of clarity around the intent of councillor Davies' amendment. So it's not substantially different in my mind.
But is councillor Davey happy with the amendment? Yes.
I don't know if I'm allowed to sum up.
No.
I'd just like to say I liked councillor Davies' amendment because I know councillor Hughes said she thought it limited our options, and I agree that it does, but I think that's a good thing because I cannot see that I'm ever going to vote to build on this garden. So therefore it seems a bit of a waste of time to tell the staff to go away and prepare plans to build on the garden because I'm never going to vote for it.
That's not what it does.
That's not what your amendment does. Well, in that case, I'm against your councillor Davies' amendment, but I'm in favour of councillor Davies' amendment because, as we said, it's open space, which we need to preserve our open space, and it's heritage. It's quite clear this is the original garden from when the cinema was built in pristine condition. And I don't know whether it's heritage listed, but if it's not heritage listed, it should be heritage listed. And if we were allowed to have a third amendment, I'd be saying council immediately needs to apply for heritage listing for this garden. Maybe we can do that next fortnight. I therefore am going to say I'm against councillor Davies' amendment, and if that's rejected, I will then vote in favour of councillor Davies' amendment. Visitors, glad you came.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can just buy some clarification, this report was designed to seek council's approval to adopt a conservation management plan for the Regal Theatre. It was not designed to have the debate around what we were going to do with the green space. It was simply an added section in section 9 that the consultant added as you might also like to think about this. So the intent of this is to adopt the conservation management plan, which is encapsulated in this amendment. Now, understanding the confusion that it has caused by having that section 9 in the suggested plan, the point 2 to that amendment attempts to provide clarity to say that we are going to consider the green space as well as other components outside the fabric of the theatre as part of an overarching precinct master plan. And council will have full control over the final incantation of that in terms of what council's final wishes are around that green space. Thank you.
Do you have a question, Councillor Lemon?
I do, if I may. That green space, is there pardon me, is there any evidence at all that that's a heritage garden?
Page 70.
What does it matter?
Through your worship, my understanding is that it's not heritage listed, and I'm not aware as to whether it's in its original condition or not, but I'd suspect not.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
I just wanted to clarify the lease arrangements for the hula hoop bar, which is using the premises, the two shop fronts at the front of the Regal Theatre, and who I understand have a lease, a 5 plus 5 year lease signed last year, so that's a 10-year option on the site with an annual, is it an annual licence to utilise that garden for their business?
Mr Kent?
Through your worship, yes, the current tenants entered into a new lease last year, which was a 5 plus 5 renewal at council's discretion with the right of renewal. That was over the shop fronts component. As you rightly said, they then have a licence agreement under limited hours of that garden space that's negotiated annually.
A question, Councillor Henschke?
Yes, a question. Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question just to again clarify. We are talking about a conservation management plan as per guiding principles of Borough Charter. It's about conserving the Regal Cinema, and it's not about, a conservation management plan is not about development. So I don't understand why we need to have this extra item 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, my understanding, and I agree with it, is the conservation management plan has had a section added, that's presented for councillors' information, has had a section added to the back, which has suggested some further things that council might like to think about. In my mind, I'm fully supportive of the wording here, in that it provides clarity to the reader of these minutes that council is approving the conservation management plan, which is the fabric of the building and protecting that, rather than endorsing anything to happen with that green space right now, and that there is a second step that we're going to undertake with regards to that. So in my mind, it's about providing clarity for the community about what council's intent is here tonight.
If I just pick up from that too, if you look at page 74, in that controversial, or what has been seen to be a controversial section, on the last page of it, it says, in order to consider and evaluate these and other opportunities more thoroughly, it is recommended that future users assessment be undertaken for the Regal Theatre. That is in fact what Councillor Davis has put in his second part of this motion. So he's actually moving forward into that next step, the next stage. Let's look at this whole area and decide what could or should be done, and it goes out to consultation. We get feedback from the community. They all have the opportunity to have a say in whatever is going to happen with that theatre. So there's no one else on the screen, so I'm going to put this motion, this amended motion, to the vote. The amendment of the motion, apologies. Unless, of course, Councillor Davis wishes to speak. Oh, no, it's an amendment, you can't. That's right, sorry. Okay, so those in favour? Those against? So the amendment becomes a motion, and now we can vote on the motion, which is what is there. So this one here is Councillor Councillor Davies. She amended the original motion. Yeah. Okay, so now we can vote on this.
Can I sum up?
Yeah. Can Jane sum up?
It's my right to sum up, isn't it? Yes. Thank you.
Who moved the original motion?
This is the original motion.
As per the recommendation.
Sorry, Councillor Cornish was the mover of the original motion, and since he is not here, there is no one to sum up. So we're going to move straight into the vote. So those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. Against? Carry. Report. Councillor Dawes, the next one is yours. Greenhill Road, Hallett Road intersection.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, just to get myself organised here. Now, this motion was going to be discussed as a motion on notice in January. The CEO believed it would be better if it was a officer's recommendation, which was going to be discussed last meeting, but we didn't have enough time. So because of that, we have to change number 1, because it says include an amount of $10,000 in Council's next quarterly budget review Q2. That should be Q3 now, so we can just change that to Q3. Do you want me to read the whole motion now, Mayor, or not? No? Okay. Just a couple of points here. First thing I wanted to mention to you is that there have been 26 reportable crashes over the last 5 years at this intersection, and that appears on page 78. Now, the local residents put a petition to us last April, if you can recall, informing us of their concerns. It went to DIPT. DIPT eventually replied through our local member. I don't know, Bandus, whether we've got a letter directly, but we've got the letter via our local member. So they have recommended that we seek black spot funding. At the same time, this is separate to the motion, it won't be yet discussed. There will be in future a council report about the speed limit on Hallett Road. At the moment it's 60 kilometres per hour. There will be a report from administration, not too sure when, Magnus, but shortly, where we have a traffic management plan and a community engagement plan to support reducing the speed limit from 60 down to 50. As you know, you would be aware, Hallett Road has a couple of schools on there and a park. Now, as regards this motion, as you'll see from the picture on page 81, this is a very unusual intersection. We have a bird's eye view of it. We have 2 right-hand turns going from Hallett Road into Greenhill Road. We also have a bus turn off to the left and then coming around further up to turn right into Greenhill Road. So what tends to happen here is that drivers do take risks, especially during peak hour and when people are in a hurry, which tends to be most times. The interesting part here is that if you look at the crashes, the vast majority are not during bad weather or at night, but on a dry road and during daylight hours. So because of that, we believe it's an issue. The other problem we have, of course, is the cement trucks coming down from Slates Gully Road, down Greenhill Road, and there's a catastrophe likely to happen, I can feel sure, if we don't have some traffic calming occurring at this intersection. We've been very, very lucky to date. It does remind me of the Glen Osmond Road, Southeast Freeway intersection, but to a slightly lesser degree, I must admit, with the amount of traffic in there. So I'm highly recommending this to you. We do thank our local residents, Councillor Turnbull and I, for undergoing a very long process, including a petition, and if it wasn't for them, I don't think it will be as far as we have now. So I do highly recommend it to you. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Hubel.
I don't wish to speak.
Councillor Davis wishes to speak.
If Councillor Hubel doesn't wish to speak, I won't speak either.
What a bonus.
Councillor Piggott.
Let's keep that going. I had a couple of questions. Can you tell me I didn't think it was in the report, I apologise if it is, but the 26 crashes, are they all the same sort of thing happening?
Through the chair, the biggest type of those crashes are right-angle crashes. I think it's 18 right-angle crashes, and then you've got some others, side swipes, rear-enders, but the biggest grouping is the right-angle crash.
So people coming out of Hallett Road being cleaned up by people heading east?
Potentially.
Is that the big one? Yeah, okay. Just looking at, why is it that do DIPT not see, do they not think the 26 crashes in 5 years is a particular problem? Why is DIPT not engaged in this issue?
Through the Mayor, it's difficult to speak for another department, but I think they narrowly addressed the issue, because the petition from memory called for a specific solution being a roundabout. So DIPTI has addressed that, but not gone any further. DIPTI's concluded the roundabout is too difficult and expensive given the space constraints. This report hints that there might be other solutions which could work at that intersection.
And do we think just because we deal with roads that there is probably a pretty good solution to it?
Through the Chair, yes. I don't want to presuppose what the consultant may recommend, but one option which kind of jumps out a little bit out of the page is the one mentioned in paragraph 39, the reprioritisation. That may very well, subject to design, be in the top 2 or 3 solutions, which is essentially bringing a stop or give way sign to westbound Green Hill Road traffic and giving the Hallett Road into Green Hill Road and vice versa the prioritisation of movement.
Right. And what happens to the people on Green Hill going east? They have to stop as well, do they?
Through the Chair, again, that's subject to design, but there may be specialised slip lanes to deal with those movements.
Yeah, okay. All right. And just last thing, the $10,000 that's proposed, I have actually asked this question before today. How far does that get us? We've got to get a solution. We've got to get DIPTI to say it's okay, don't we? And then we have to apply for black spot funding. Are they the 3 things we have to do? How far along the road does $10,000 get us? No pun intended, Tip.
Through the Chair, that's right. We need to get some designs and options done. We need to get DIPTI's imprimatur, given it is DIPTI's road, and then if there is a suitable solution with agreement, then we'll need to make an application for black spot funding in the right year. So $10,000 should get us enough information to be able to understand whether there's a workable solution for that intersection.
Right, and then if there is, we could use that same work to apply for the funding?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Perhaps if I could speak to it, I will support the motion. I do feel it's frustrating. It's a DIPTI road. I don't know how 26 in 5 years rates compared to other places around South Australia, but it does sound like too many for mine. We've got 2 organisations that deal in roads, us and DIPTI, but we've got to go out and get a third-party consultant to come up with solutions rather than DIPTI perhaps sitting at the table and going out there and coming up with a solution that I'm sure we'd be prepared to actually help fund. So I do find the process frustrating, but if this does get us to that point, then I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Turnbull?
I agree with Councillor Piggott. It's not really fair that we have to provide that money, but it'll be $10,000 well spent. As a person who uses that road every day, you say a silent prayer when you go around the corner. I think you've made it, because people coming up the hill to the east, they come out from behind the parked cars and you don't know what lane they're in. And so you don't know if they're going straight ahead or if they're turning left until nearly too late. There are 18 recorded crashes, but there must be a lot of near misses. I've seen many in my time, and I've had a couple too. So it really needs to be done. Also, it's resident driven, and congratulations to Councillor Dawes, who initiated and persevered with this, with the residents. And they are a bit sick of the people tearing down Green Hill Road towards the city, or some of them come out like kamikaze people, but it would be traffic calming if there was a roundabout or traffic lights, something there, because it can be quite a nightmare. It's a nightmare for them, and the trucks, the bottle trucks coming down there too, are not good either. So it'd be traffic calming, excellent. The number of cars coming along Hallett Road and using that intersection seem to be increasing daily. And you know the best bit? You get in the left-hand lane, because if you're turning around with somebody else, they get crashed into and not you. And that's pretty terrible, really. So I would support this, I ask you to support this recommendation for $10,000, well spent, Please do it. Thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
I have a question. It says in paragraph 25 that 18 of the apparent causes were recorded as disobey stop sign. So can someone tell me where the stop sign is, please? Because it's a long time since I went through that intersection. I just don't remember. So the stop sign is
The stop sign is on Hallett Road.
where they're turning right into Greenwood.
Correct.
So when our co-councillor almost gets collected, she is actually at a stop sign that means stop and give way to all traffic.
If you can see them.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this $10,000 really needed to fill out the form? Because if it's just a form at this stage, I mean, I support the idea of spending $10,000 to get more data or to define the problem, but do we need to do that now? I mean, can we just have the administration fill a form out and then get it in the system for the black spot funding?
Through the chair, I believe it is necessary. I don't think we can simply fill out a form, because the form needs to be accompanied by some work that demonstrates that that intersection can be modified to achieve an outcome. Plus, we also need to convince DIPTI to let us do it. So without some kind of level of options analysis and design, we wouldn't proceed anywhere.
Oh, right, so that to get the funding, you need to present concepts.
Yes.
Right, and we can't do that in-house with our own resources. We don't have the capabilities to do base level concept designs.
Through the chair, with the amount of work that already needs to be done, it's not a matter of capability, it's a matter of capacity.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
I have a question before speaking. The road is a DIPTI road on Green Hill Road, but who controls the parking? Do we put in place the parking restrictions on Green Hill Road?
Through the chair, I believe that's also DIPTI, although we can do it with their agreement.
Well, I'd like to put forward an amendment to the motion then, that part 3 actually read that can we contact DIPTI and, I'm getting some face, is that a no? That we should contact DIPTI to do a review of the parking and the proximity to the intersection, at least as an intermediate measure, because to me, I also use that intersection like Councillor Turnbull, and that is part of the problem, is that you can't see people as you're turning right, and I actually run down High Street, so I don't have to use the intersection. But I think if we could review the parking, that could potentially alleviate part of the problem, because it is that proximity to Hallett Road with people parking on the northern side of Green Hill Road that causes a lot of the problem. So, and I'm sorry, I've just winged this, but could we request that DIPTI review parking proximity to the intersection as an interim measure?
If I may, thank you, Madam Mayor. Question to Magnus, I think. Would it be prudent in our submission to add 2 parts to it, to talk about the intersection treatment complemented by a review of the parking situation to achieve desired outcome?
Through the chair, yes, it would be.
Would we be likely to get the parking? But I'm just wondering, like the black spot funding, obviously we could put that in and nothing happens. But if the parking is a quick and potential easy win, could we consider that? And I apologise, I haven't run this past anyone, it just kind of came to me as we're sitting here discussing it. Could the two be done in parallel, essentially? So yes, when we put in our black spot funding...
Through the chair, picking up on both questions, it's a two-phase thing. So the CEO's question was about the ultimate aim, but I think we can make that third one work in the interim as well.
Okay. I'm happy with that as it stands. I don't wish to speak any further to it as an amendment.
Councillor Davey.
I'm happy to second that amendment. Also, and I thank Councillor Dawes for his motion, I actually avoid that road because I'm not scared of driving, but like Councillor Hughes, I would take any other road other than having to turn from Hallett Road.
As a variation. That's what we're just talking about that.
Yeah. So just for the clarity of the meeting, if the mover is happy to accept the addition, we'll treat it, so that it won't be treated as an amendment.
It's a variation.
Just variation. Thank you.
Fabulous. Yes, I just want to say I support it, and I mean, I'm a roundabout person. I'd hate to see traffic lights here. I would hope that perhaps modern design, traffic design, could see redesign of that whole intersection and perhaps a roundabout, which I think would make it much safer. But we're dealing again with this huge influx of traffic that the traffic volumes that we are having to deal with in our suburbs as we have urban infill and greater development. And I think this is another sign of it, with the heavy traffic that comes down there, but the volumes of family cars, and I think we need to do something to help protect them.
Right, don't have anyone else on the screen, so back to you, Councillor Dawes.
Yes, I thank everybody for their input. I think we've got a better motion out of it. Now, Deputy did do a survey back middle of last year. We haven't yet got the results of that, which I know that Magnus is chasing. That might give us more information. But when they did it, they had huge signs up saying road survey starting. It turned people off. People thought they were checking on speeds or whatever. So, but at least they have done it. But I just can't believe it's taken 6 to 8 months to even get to us. But I know you'll chase that. But again, I put the motion to you.
Right, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Move to Chief Executive Officer report. Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I move in accordance with the officer's recommendation, the CEO's recommendation, and I'd like to thank him for a very comprehensive report. It covers, it's got some great summaries, financial summaries, and particularly our project, an overview of our projects that are taking up a lot of our time and effort, but are all very important. So thank you for those. The one that I have a query about, and I've got concerns about, is the work in Kensington Gardens Reserve, which is happening with...
you have a page reference, Councillor Davey?
Oh, I beg your pardon.
102. You were just on 102. Yeah.
Yes, 102. No, it's to do with the Kensington Gardens, yes, Reserve, page 99, and the Ghana Cultural Heritage oversighting of the works there. I believe there's something happening, or an assessment happening this week, and I'm just wondering where we're at in terms of our responsibilities. I know you gave me an update, but our responsibilities under the Heritage Act, SA Heritage, Aboriginal Heritage Act, where we have to have ministerial approval for these sites, and whether that has come into play here in all that. And I know you're doing a whole lot of work to oversight it, but I just wondered, do we need any formal approvals?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just ask Aaron to give us insight into that one.
Through the Chair. So yes, correct, we have contacted one of the Ghana groups, and we'll be having a site survey done next week, next Thursday, I believe. From there, they'll provide us the advice in relation to significance of the site. Obviously, we've already done the cultural heritage report, which give us an indication of whether there was any significant registered sites within the vicinity. This is the next step in that process, where we actually go out on site and actually look at the site and make the determination whether there's anything significant on the ground. From there, we are then able to make a recommendation to the department, a submission to the department, and proceed from there.
Right, okay, thanks very much. No further questions.
Right, I don't have anyone else on the screen now, so it's going back to you, Councillor Davey. Oh, no, sorry, we need a seconder. Sorry. Councillor Piggott, is that you kind of looking like you're about to second?
I'll second.
Oh, sorry, no, apologies. I already have Councillor Hubel.
I don't wish to speak.
Councillor Piggott, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I will, actually. Thanks. Look, I just want to pick up on just a comment to congratulate the administration in regard to the push on the planning reforms and the engagement during January and February primarily in respect to the planning reforms, and it was, I think, well received and crucial, and hopefully had the desired effect of being able to convey to the consultation process the issues that they need to address. So so congratulations.
Councillor Hedgkey.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And also on the topic of the Planning and Design Code, I think a number of us also received a thank you note from residents in the Rose Park Terrace Gardens ward, thanking the administration and council for the communication and the work done to raise awareness. And I'd just like to pass that on to the whole chamber and publicly. Thank you.
Right, I don't have anyone else on the screen, so Councillor Davey, you ready to sum up, or you wish me to put it to vote? Right, those in favour of accepting the report, those against, carry. Now we move to Councillor Davis, Eastern Regional Alliance.
So it's an alternative motion to the one that was in the report. The motion that was in the report is just one, and I've moved additionally 2 and 3. Item number 1 is adopt the updated ERA Strategic Plan 2024. Expresses its commitment to achieving a resource and financial savings initiatives through continued collaborations with the ERA councils. And 3, write to ERA requesting that the KPI for Strategy 3.4 Regional Service Delivery be expanded in the resultant action plan to achieve the following. More efficient use of plant and equipment through resource sharing across ERA, training collaboration through joint training sessions for council staff and elected members, exploring joint procurement opportunities and shared staff resources across ERA. If I might speak to it. I think that, over the years we've had a lot of occasions where I think that councils could have cooperated better and used resources more efficiently. And I think that it's really good to see that when that does happen well. And in Kangaroo Island, for example, I think that there was Port Adelaide Enfield sent graders, a number of other councils provided support during that kind of emergency. But more, and that was very helpful for the Kangaroo Island Council. But even in Burnside, when we can make use of resources from other councils, we don't really seem to be doing that. So, in my view, I suppose taking a bigger view is the strategic plan. In my view, doesn't really hit the nail on the head in what I want to see the ERA councils achieve together. In my view, the KPIs are not as strong as they could be, and some of them have already been delivered, which I think is a bit strange for a KPI document when you've already got things that have already been completed. And I think that the ERA councils can make a very strong statement here, not only to our residents, but also those in state government who are very critical of councils, to say, well, this is how we are working together, and the ERA Council is a great example of councils working together. And we've already got that with EHAR and with East Waste and ERA Water and a whole bunch of other initiatives that we do collectively, even Brownhill Creek. And I think that what we should be doing is really setting our KPIs in terms of an ERA plan as to how we can bring our councils closer together. Now, one of the ideas that I thought we might be able to do is, I know a while back there was consideration of whether we should buy something as simple as a cherry picker, because Burnside had more frequent use for a cherry picker than we had the equipment for it. And I know the administration went through a process of determining, well, it was cheaper to hire it in that particular instance than to purchase one. And I thought there's probably other occasions where we have equipment that's currently sitting idle and that Burnside Council could provide to other councils, and perhaps they could provide to us on some kind of timeshare arrangement, and you'd have to account for usage and costs and depreciation so that councils aren't disadvantaged in any way. But I think that there is a possibility there that certainly councils could be more efficient in working together. In addition, training, collaboration for council staff and elected members, we could do that with other councillors, and we could do that with other councils. in certain events, and also, with the new state development planning and things like that, rather than having a lawyer come out and, go through the changes for each single one, we could do more combined training sessions. And of course, I think joint procurement is a huge thing, and the LGA's been very hot on that in terms of trying to get all the councils together collectively to engage in procurement of, whatever it is, to try and save costs for council. I think that we as ERA should be certainly moving towards that process. So, in my view, I think that the strategy 3.4 hits on this, but I'd really like to see more KPIs for us as a regional body to expand our working relationships with neighbouring councils, and I think that there are some great ways that we can reduce our rates and make things more efficient for our ratepayers. So I hope that you'll support this amendment to look at further ways we can cooperate with our neighbours.
Seconded by Councillor Hughes.
Yes, I am happy to second the motion. I did read the strategic plan and thought that it could have been a little bit more of a stretch in terms of some of the KPIs, and that there was a little bit of a let's just kind of rock and roll as we're going. And I think as a group of councils, there's huge potential there to collaborate and work regionally. I think Councillor Davis has summed it up well, so I will leave it at that.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, I was actually hoping to second this, but yeah, look, I think we don't live in a bubble, and I think there's a lot of common sense to be had in terms of sharing, pooling resources. Obviously, natural environments are shared, made environments not so much, and obviously we still have our ratepayers that we have a responsibility to, but I think there are opportunities that we can exploit here in a good way.
Councillor Lemon.
Yes, I have a question, if I may. I see the KPI under this particular regional services and programs. The KPI currently says a regional service delivery framework is adopted and enacted. So could I ask, does one actually exist, or does that still yet have to be developed? Page 129. Last row under KPIs.
Page number again, please.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I beg your pardon, 133. I'm so sorry.
That's why we can find it.
Sorry.
I haven't got my glasses on.
So if I may clarify, through Madam Mayor, Councillor, the question was regarding the KPI for point 4 on there.
Yes.
So again, I've only attended one meeting, but I'm taking the face value that they put a date of 2021, which, so my understanding is that there currently is not a regional service delivery framework.
It doesn't exist at this stage.
Doesn't exist at this point in time, no.
Can I just say that I attended all the meetings last year and there was no discussion of that at the time, except that this was going to be in the 2021 plan. I've not seen it.
So this certainly provides us with an opportunity to have Burnside's input into this, bearing in mind if this gets up tonight.
So I will speak to the motion now. While I applaud the sentiment behind this, I actually think it's a little premature unless it is a suggestion that these go into the framework. What we're looking at here is specific KPIs for a regional service delivery framework that currently doesn't exist, which I think is a little early in the game, quite frankly. So I think, I don't know whether I can support this, because I think this is, we've got a cart 15 kilometres in front of the horse in a lot of ways. This regional service delivery framework is not going to have legs until next year, as far as I can see. So while we can suggest that these are the sorts of things that are actually taken into account, I think it's seriously premature for us to say, well, these are our KPIs that we're going to in fact measure for a delivery framework that hasn't even begun yet. I don't know that that's going to work very well at all. I think we need to keep these things in mind and perhaps use them in a different sort of way to feed into the delivery framework, but not put them forward now as KPIs for something that doesn't exist, because these are they're very specific, and they're also 4 things for something that I suspect is going to be a lot bigger than 4 things that has just come off the tops of our heads here tonight. So I think we're ahead of ourselves somewhat.
Through Madam Mayor, in terms of the enactment of this resolution we get up, my understanding of it is that the mover's not seeking to change the KPI that's in the document. It's simply seeking to inform any future action plan that comes out of that KPI. And I know certainly in my first meeting I've had some preliminary discussions around plant and equipment particularly, and joint procurement. And in essence, this would strengthen my conversations into the group in terms of what on-ground actions come out of this KPI. So my takeaway is it's supportive. It's supportive of the broad position in the strategic plan, but simply providing a level of some clarification in terms of what we're expecting in the actions on ground as a council. It's my understanding.
Councillor Piggott.
Thanks. When I read this strategic plan, actually it was only the fact that I didn't want Burnside to be the one blowing up a shared organisation that sort of pulled me back from, because I was not particularly happy with it. I feel I mean, it's good in principle, but I think it strikes me as an organisation that has got broad goals and objectives. It's largely unresourced, not only lightly resourced, but not resourced. It's doing probably what might happen fairly naturally amongst councils anyway, and it's interesting that some people are in ERA and not in ERA, some people are in East Waste and not in ERA, etc., etc. The whole Unley thing in here, as ERA were working on Unley to come into East Waste. Well, so was East Waste, and they didn't, and so I'm a bit conflicted really. You go on their website and the contacts list is 3 years out of date. It's got, I think, of the 6 mayors, only 2 of them are current, and of the 6 CEOs, only 4 of them are current. So from that point of view, although, and so anyway, I did back off that. So I think, I am happy that we do adopt this strategic plan. But what I would say for the future strategic plan, perhaps if we have any influence over it, is I think we really need to narrow down, and I would narrow down actually to where Councillor Davis went in the KPIs. I feel it's largely, the gains are largely financial, and the focus of the organisation should be very much like that. I think a lot of the other things that they are doing are just reflecting what the councils are doing anyway. I feel some of the things they've claimed credit for, probably they're claiming it when the councils did it and would have happened anyway. So I mean, I'm not proposing an amendment, but I would like our members of the group perhaps to see whatever they could do over the next couple of years to perhaps do that, because I think it is an organisation that is worthy. It seems a really good idea, but the fact is, I think they are pretty strong councils in their own right. And then if you do want to do something, you haven't actually got much directly at your disposal or their disposal to do it with. So in regard to the motion, I'm happy to support it. I think like I say, the areas that Councillor Davis went to, I think is perhaps where it should really hone in on. They are where the big wins are, I feel. So I am happy to support the motion.
Councillor Day.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, my question relates to the Resilient East and what's happened to that. Very important focus. On page 135, there's a KPI summary of the ongoing annual programs, I guess, or actions. And 3.3 is that the Resilient East and economic development programs have been successfully implemented. Does that mean we're not doing any more work at all on them? Especially the Resilient East.
Yeah, sorry, just had to clarify something. Through Your Worship, no, that just means that the previous carnation of the Resilient East KPIs were achieved. They have reviewed those and are very much still involved at that. There's actually an information document coming out to you shortly that includes quite a bit of information on that.
And can I just also point out on page 136, it does say 3.1, 2019-20, the successful implementation of the 3-year Resilient East program. So it's actually indicating that it is a continuing process. Councillor Davey. Now, Councillor Dawes.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I did find this a rather bland document, and when you have 6 councils, and I think Councillor Pickett hinted at it, it's very hard to get consensus sometimes. So what tends to happen is you have something very, very broad. But we do represent over 200,000 people, which was of interest to me. I have a comment, and again it's my sporting background. On page 133, they referred to, and I've got to find it first of all, under number 3, Reckon Sport Assets. They talk about programs. I hope it means more than that, because last year you might remember that this council made a submission to a government document concerning sport infrastructure. And I think that Barry might remember that as well. And the reason why the government was doing it was because every council wants this and that and so forth, rather than looking at it from a regional approach. So I'm hoping that this comes out, that we look at the Reckon Sport side of things. Like, for instance, we haven't got in the eastern area a decent indoor sports venue for things like gymnastics and martial arts, etc. But it doesn't mean it has to be in Burnside. It can be anywhere in that region that we're talking about. It's a big region if you look at that map in that strategic plan. So I just wanted to add that to the Mayor and the CEO, that if we can just highlight that, not just all the other things, and I like what Councillor Davis was saying about procurement and so forth. I especially liked one about the mandatory, what is it, mandatory joint training sessions. Why can't we do it with Campbelltown and so forth and save money that way? But they're small things, I realise. I'm talking about the larger things. So if we can use this forum to highlight that, I know the government will say that's what we're looking at too. Thank you.
I can assure you that has been part of the discussion, and those 2 were put in as examples in there, but there's also been discussion about potential for an arts precinct, because nothing, apart from Pepper Street, which is very small, nothing exists in terms of a large arts precinct as well. And I know that's been one of the things that we, as era councils, we will look at exploring, because this is all about assessing the feasibility and exploring for the next 3 years. So we are aware of it. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm all for savings, and I banged on about that when I first started, and also I kept on asking, when is the lawnmower going to keep driving down Osmond Terrace and just continue on down Prescott Terrace? Because the lawn just continues on, but the 2 councils meet, and one lawnmower stops at Kensington Road and the other one meets it front on. I just always wonder, why can't we just have one lawnmower run up the whole of Osmond Terrace and Prescott Terrace? So yes, I just think it's fabulous. And I suppose I'm mapping these specific things onto these KPIs. So in speaking to this motion, I mean, look, these things are specifically spelt out here, but am I correct to say that these are pretty much in these KPIs anyway, in these frameworks that Helga's pointed out and so forth?
I'll answer that. At length, these things have been discussed in ERA meetings.
So there's nothing new.
But there's nothing specific in these KPIs.
And you
but
don't-
they certainly have been discussed. In fact, it's been really something that Mr. Cant also attended some of those meetings as well.
Okay, great.
And certainly these are the issues we're talking about all the, really at every meeting there is something where we're sharing, how can we make this more efficient? How can we do this? So,
great.
and I'm
Thanks,
sure that
Anne.
this year, ERA is going to be led by David O'Loughlin from Prospect Council. Last year it was Michael Hewitson from Unley, and we did do a submission on behalf of ERA councils that Michael Hewitson wrote, and we all approved of, that went to the State Planning Commission, and about 5 o'clock this afternoon I received a letter, a copy from Michael of the response from Stefan Knoll. I will email that out to you tomorrow, and it will be in the correspondence in our next council meeting. So it's just review some of the, we looked at heritage matters, high density interface, tree canopy and code amendments generally. They were the major 4 issues. They're nowhere near as expansive as our council's report or submission, I might add.
Thank you. And so then why do we need to go specific like this on these KPIs? Do we need to do this? That's my question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think what this will do, it'll help support a push that I'm looking to introduce into ERA to focus on some of, and I can class this as low-hanging fruit. So if nothing else, it will support conversations that I'm having with the other CEOs, that this is important to this council.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I have is how will residents and ratepayers in the city of Burnside, I don't want the risk that some residents and ratepayers will think, hang on, it's not fair that our rates are being possibly used to subsidise Norwood Council, for example. How will we manage that risk, if it is a risk?
I think, through Madam Mayor, I don't believe it's a risk, because any project that is undertaken has this broad goal of mutual benefit, and each council councils can decide whether they are in or out of an initiative. So you'll see through this plan that there are a number of examples where only 2 or 3 councils have got together on a project, and sometimes it's the case that it's not economically advantageous for a council to jump on board a particular initiative. So councils have a choice. So if Burnside was ever of the opinion that it wasn't economically advantageous for us to be in a particular initiative, we wouldn't enter in.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I have no one else on the screen, so Councillor Davis, back to you.
So I think KPIs should be specific, measurable and achievable, and Councillor Hughes said that before. And I think my large problem with this, these KPIs as they currently sit, is they definitely don't seem to be that way. If you have a look at 1.1, 2019-20, a review of achievements, new influences. So we're going to do a review, and then 1.2 is a workshop. We'll address the question, is this the best way of working? So we're going to have a workshop. And then 2.3, something like ERA councils influence the design and implementation of state government agendas to ensure the best outcome for Eastern Adelaide communities. To me, these are like very, very broad concepts of maybe speaking to each other. And I think that councils across the state of South Australia and even interstate, and even looking at any government, whether it's state between South Australia and Queensland, or whether it's inter-council or even inter-countries, we should be looking at ways that we can collaborate with each other. And what we need, in order to do that, we need to take down, I think, some of our walls. And there's an invisible wall that Councillor Henschke talked about with her lawnmower, and I think that's an excellent example of something in 3.D where we can look at shared staff resources and continue along. And I think that our residents, every time they see a lawnmower hit an invisible wall, turn around because it's the end of Burnside, they go, what are you guys doing? Why doesn't you just keep going? And then the guy on the other side of the truck pulls off his lawnmower and drives back up the other way, and they kind of high-five as they go past each other. I think that, ERA, the strategic plan here is a core document that we should be holding up to the state government and telling them to bugger off, in that we are collaborating and that we are working together. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is our direction. Can you really say the same? And I think that that's kind of what I was hoping from this document, is that it would be something we can really hold up and be proud of, and I don't really see that. And so, I was kind of a mind when I first saw this to knock it back completely, and I don't think that that's the best approach, because obviously I want to reinforce that we want to work with our regional partners, and knocking back our strategic plan to work with them is probably not the best look. But I think what this does do in the debate that we've had tonight is give our CEO the momentum or the authority to go through and say, look, Burnside wants to collaborate more. We want to look at better ways of resource sharing. And is it exhaustive? No, it's not. But the reality is that in item 3, it does say, right to ERA, and I'll take up Councillor Lemon's point, right to ERA requesting that KPI for strategy 3.4 be expanded in the resultant action plan to achieve the following. So I am really talking about the current action plan and then expanding it to include these things. And what I really want to do is send to the other councils a message that Burnside is on board, that we're keen, that we want to do more together. And I'm hoping that message, and I think it will be carried through our CEOs. So I also feel that we really need a leader from our ERA team, and really someone who can step up and say, this is my vision for a joint collaboration between these councils. And hopefully the new chair will be able to do that and really bring people on board. Because I know, I suppose it's like countries meeting when they go to these big forums internationally. Everyone goes and tells themselves a whole bunch of platitudes, and they're all very nice, and they leave again, not really achieving anything of any significance. And what I really want to see coming out of this is those walls being taken down and say, well, you know what, why don't you pay for the cost of the driver? It'll cost us an extra $40 to continue through and do the rest of that street to mow the lawn. And those types of discussions, and actually have outcomes, and then show that we can reduce our rates. And I remember in a previous KPI we put for our CEO that we wanted to see a percentage decrease in rates, or a percent, like an efficiency dividend, through collaboration from other councils. So I think that this motion definitely supports and gets on the same page as all the other councils, but also sends a message that we really want some more measurables and achievables, and for those KPIs to be specific. So I hope that you can support this motion and see where I'm going with it. I think we have work to do here, and I think there's a lot of goals that we can kick, and I think our residents will certainly be on board with such a suggestion.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'd like to suggest that we have a break now. There are only 2 items left. One is the reconciliation plan, and then the other one is the Burnside Hospital. Mindful of the time, if we have a 10-minute break now, restart at 5:02. I'm just making the suggestion, and I'm asking for an indication. That's what I was concerned it might, hence my suggestion of a break now. Right, so those in favour of having a break now? Against? Carried. Right, start at 5:02. Thank you. We have 7 in our seats, so we can resume the meeting. Who moved it? Who called it for it?
All the rest of them. I move the non-voting ones. Oh, okay, I should see that.
Councillor Davey?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm happy to move in accordance with the recommendation. Move 1 to 3.
She's going to change form.
I'll second it. Is that what we're waiting for?
Well, I'm not sure what she's doing. You just want to move only 1, 2 and 3, do you, Councillor Davey?
Yeah, she can.
Oh, okay, fine. Seconded by Councillor Hughes. Thank you. Do you wish to discuss that, or shall we vote on that?
Thank Farley Taylor for her report. I think it's absolutely timely that we are now moving towards this process. So I don't intend to go into any detail, but I just think it's very timely action and time that we do this.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Hughes. All right. So all those in favour of 1 to 3?
Do we not have a debate? No?
Sorry?
If you want to vote against.
I didn't have anyone on the screen, so I just went straight to voting. So those against, I didn't do, so it's carried. Now, we do need to go through that point number 4, appoint the 3 elected members to the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group. Yes. So, I seek nominations. Councillor Hughes.
I wish to nominate Councillor Hubel.
Councillor Hubel, do you wish to accept?
I do,
thank you. Councillor Henschke.
I wish to nominate myself, please.
Councillor Henschke, do you obviously wish to? Shouldn't have had a 10-minute break.
Don't!
Yes.
Madam Mayor, if I could just bring to the attention of the meeting, Councillor Cornish has requested a nomination for,
in his
for a
absence.
seat in his absence.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Hughes.
Councillor Hughes, do you wish? Okay. All right.
Nominate me
then. Do you wish to speak?
No, I'm happy to nominate for the...
Councillor Davey wishes to nominate as well. You're making a list there. Thank you. All right. Councillor Hubel.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Davis.
Councillor Davis. You wish to stand? Councillor Davis. Councillor Piggott.
I would like to nominate myself.
And Councillor Piggott. Councillor Lemon.
I have a question.
Set.
My question is this. What is the duration of the appointment?
Let me talk to that. The duration of appointment will be for the period that it takes to formulate the Reconciliation Action Plan. And as an indicator, using the City of Whyalla as an example, it took about 7 months from commencement to when the Reconciliation Action Plan was forwarded to Reconciliation Action Australia for their review. So it should be no longer than a 12-month period in my mind.
Right.
I'd like to speak to that.
Oh, yes, certainly.
I gave this a lot of thought today, the fact that we're appointing people to this committee, and I feel that the way we're going about this is like we're appointing people to any other committee that we have. And I don't think this is that. I do not think that this is a committee that we have ever had before, nor will we ever likely to have again. This isn't something, for me, this isn't something that is a box-ticking exercise. We're going to go on this committee, we're going to put together a plan, and we're going to tick that box. Burnside has done it. I think there are a lot of things in the paperwork here that is subtext to this, and I believe that we need to have in our hearts that what we're doing is a lot more than putting together a plan. Now, I know that Farley's worked very, very hard on this and is incredibly passionate about it. I saw Chris's action plan for Whyalla. And in Whyalla, I bothered to go and have a look at the ABS stats for 2016 for our census. In Whyalla, Indigenous and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders make up 4.7% of the population. So in that area, it actually has real meaning for people within the area. In Burnside, they make up 0.3%, according to the 2016 census. So what we're doing here is working for those people that are working in our area, but it's much, much more than that. And I would like to feel in my heart that the people that are going to be on this committee are going to this committee in the best possible way. Having worked with Aboriginal people and stood shoulder to shoulder with them in my career in the public sector over a long period of time, just establishing relationships, which is the first thing that you're going to do when you're on this committee, just establishing a relationship is going to take a long time. It requires trust. It requires the capacity to listen and not talk. It requires the capacity to understand. It requires the capacity to recognise, to have a self-awareness and recognise in yourself your own prejudices, your own biases, to understand that you bring those to the table every time and to actually ameliorate them every time. To make this a really meaningful reconciliation plan, these are the things that are required of the people that are going to be sitting at that table. So to that end, I am uncomfortable, I have to say, about doing this tonight with one of our members who has actually been very involved in this area over a long period of time, not here, to make a pitch. And to that end, I'm also uncomfortable about putting people on the spot tonight. The pitch that you're going to make for me to hear is going to have to actually touch my heart for me to vote for you, because this is important. This is probably the most important thing we're going to do between now and the end of this term. And how we handle this reflects on this entire council. So I feel that we don't have to do this tonight. I believe that the people that have nominated need to look very, very carefully about why they've nominated and what they're bringing to this table. And I believe their pitch should reflect that. I'm not disrespecting any single person that's done it, but I really want to give them the opportunity to think about why they're doing it and what they're bringing, what is in their hearts for making this something meaningful, as opposed to ticking off a plan that might be here in 7 months. And if it is, what will it actually mean? What is it going to actually give us in terms of real reconciliation? So these are my concerns that I'm putting on the table for us to look at and examine amongst ourselves.
I wasn't remiss in not getting a seconder for this part of the motion. Can I seek a seconder, please? The part, oh, we did? Oh, sorry, I thought you said we didn't get a seconder. No, Martin told me we didn't have a seconder. We did. Councillor Piggott, you wish to speak?
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the motion?
There isn't one, is there?
There is no motion, we're just talking at the moment.
The part of it that is the doing the nominations.
Yeah, so just to be clear,
Point four.
through Madam Mayor, we are just seeking nominations at this stage. And as per point 3, council has agreed to undertake a secret ballot.
And Councillor Lemon has raised the question as to whether that should go through, spoken against it effectively.
Council motion's really moving an adjournment to the motion. Yeah.
A deferral.
So I guess I'd quite like to speak to that as well, if I could. Yeah.
Can I just clarify, Madam Mayor? My understanding is that Councillor Lemon hadn't moved, or was just, am I correct or incorrect?
No, she hasn't moved.
That's correct, that's correct. So nothing has been moved at this point in time.
So I'm unclear whether, I mean, clearly Councillor Lemon feels that we shouldn't do this tonight. But is there any mechanism for us not to do it tonight, currently?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if we just go through what council has adopted this evening. So, as it stands, council has moved, seconded, carried, that we received the report, endorsed the fact that we're going to go through the process of preparing a reflect action plan, reconciliation action plan, and we have agreed that we are going to undertake this evening a secret... sorry, apologies. It says we will undertake a secret ballot should we proceed further past this point. Sorry, thank you.
Well, look, my view on it, you rightly accepted Councillor Lemon's opportunity to speak to that, and you're accepting mine by the sounds as well, so that's good. I think Councillor Lemon's actually made a few leaps in what the people who nominated have or haven't done ahead of nominating tonight. I am taken aback by the passion, and I think that's fantastic. I certainly couldn't claim to match that in regard to this issue, but it has been something that I have felt for a while. I'm not, it sounds like the pitch, but I do think, and I'm not sure whether she thought I was one of them that was looking to just tick a box. But I don't actually think it's a fair thing to say that we haven't thought through what this does involve, and in the same way as any other committee we might actually line up for. It seems the logical way to do it. Whether it's tonight or not has, I think, little, I don't see why we wouldn't do it tonight. Because I, for one, did think long and hard. I'm not probably a natural person. It's probably surprised a lot of people around the table that I've actually nominated. But I did think about the importance of it, and I don't see it as a box-ticking exercise. I think it's actually quite a involved, politically sensitive, very important thing to do. And it's not just the 7 months and getting the plan done. It's pushing it through further than that. So I don't think that Councillor Lemon's claim that we've gone into this short-sighted is valid. We've known this was on at least since last Thursday. Councillor Cornish not being here is regrettable. I don't know whether that worked in his favour or against him, actually, in a vote. I think it'd be impossible to tell. But that does happen from time to time. So I think we can all consider that when we do consider who we vote for, albeit without Councillor Cornish doing his pitch, I guess. So I feel it is appropriate to move forward.
Right, so I'm going to ask each person to speak. Now, I've got to be reminded, is it 2 minutes? 3 minutes? No, it's more than 30 seconds. It's in the documents. Oh, they've got 5. They have 5 minutes. All right, with a warning bell at 4. Councillor Davis, do you wish to ask a question?
Yeah, is there a possibility that more than 3 can be put on the committee?
It's certainly, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, it's certainly something I turn my mind to, and I'm conscious of keeping a committee that's of a workable size, but also conscious that there are a larger number than 3 elected members that wish to be on this. I had suggested to the Mayor prior to the meeting that if we had 4 elected members, we thought it might be appropriate to expand the number to 4.
If there are 4 nominations.
If there are 4
we will go through
nominations.
the process.
Given that there are 6, my opinion is that that is probably too large a number to come on. Having said that, it is in Council's remit. If they wish 6 to go on, they could change that number and put 6 on.
Councillor Davey.
I wish to withdraw my nomination. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Lemon, you have another question?
Yes, I have a question. Who is the chair of this committee?
I'm sorry?
Who's the chair of the
Chair.
committee?
Does the report make reference?
I don't think it does. It does? I don't remember it.
If I may, through the chair, we've got a bit of a draft terms of reference and the chair can be decided, but I'm not sure if the CEO was the chair in the previous.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I'll reflect on my experience previously. What we did was form the committee, and the committee itself went through a process of deciding who they preferred to be the chair at that point in time. It wasn't automatically determined who that was.
And will the Mayor also be doing a pitch?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the 2 positions that are on there, being the Mayor and the CEO, in my opinion, I would not expect the Mayor to be pitching for a seat at this, particularly as on one hand we have a motion on the books that says that the Mayor will be ex officio on all committees of Council. But in this case, given the profile and of this Reconciliation Action Plan, I'm of the opinion that it's highly appropriate that the Mayor sits on this committee.
All right, so I think I will do this alphabetically. So, Councillor Cornish, we do take, everybody takes on board his interest and enthusiasm. His involvement in the Heritage Committee already is as a result of his interest in the Ghana, supporting Ghana people, and he also was the initiator of the motion that looked at naming our parks and reserves with Ghana names. So I'm just saying this on behalf of him in his absence. So we'll move to Councillor Davis.
I think I've taken very seriously in terms of what Councillor Lemon said. I think we're nominating this chamber. I think was very excited to do this, and I think that after Councillor Lemon spoke, it became a lot more sombre, and I certainly did. And I think the interesting thing is when this came up, I immediately thought, yes, I'd love to nominate, and yes, I'd love to be involved in this. And why I would like to do that, I think it seemed natural for me to want to be involved in something like this, and it also seems very natural that so many people from our council would want to be. Now, I bring no specific expertise in terms of how to formulate such a plan. I have very little to do with our native people in our day-to-day lives. I don't spend time with them. People of Aboriginal descent, I rarely get to speak with them. And it's the issues that I think that they face is definitely something that I'm not familiar with. And I think that's the whole point, is that the reconciliation plan, or reconciliation, what it means, is about bringing people of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous peoples together, and about them understanding each other. And in my view, I think it's certainly something that, I want to be a part of, and I certainly want to understand more. And I want to be at the table and have those discussions to understand what are the issues that are facing our Indigenous peoples and how Burnside Council, and more particularly how I, as an individual, can affect that. And being an advocate of our community, I think that's probably one of the strong drivers for all of us, is we are leaders in our community, and that when we speak with people, have conversations with them, and we often do, we can say exactly why it is, or advocate, I suppose, for that reconciliation, because we understand those issues. Even looking at, say, Kingston Gardens Reserve in my ward, where there is the potential that there is significant Aboriginal heritage there. What does that mean to the Aboriginal people, and how does that affect it, and how do council decisions impact on Indigenous people, I think is something that I would like to be a part of and have those discussions. And my understanding is that's what this process is. And I think that my participation in that would be a step towards reconciliation, because I think I would come out of it feeling more knowledgeable about it. It's always something that my father encouraged me to do from a very young age. Before school, I used to go along to the Aboriginal Tent Embassy, and there was a guy called Kevin who used to taught me how to throw a boomerang. And then I remember seeing on the news when the federal police came in and removed the Aboriginal Tent Embassy. We went down the next day, and their tents were destroyed, and their infrastructure, I suppose, had been removed from the lawns of Old Parliament House. And I suppose that's something that's always stuck with me, and it's something I've always wanted to be more involved of and understand better. And so I think my nomination here is, I don't offer any specific skills, and I don't have a story that I can tell you to move you to advocate why I feel so strongly about this. But I can tell you that I do have a strong desire, and as soon as I saw this amendment, this motion, that I wanted to be involved in that. And I think that the reason is because I want to better understand myself, and I think as somebody who could do a lot better to understand their own prejudices and their own biases, and to understand their place in things, is a perfect person to be on this committee, because that's exactly who a reconciliation plan is going to be written for in many ways, and there's challenges on both sides. So I suppose that's my pitch. Might not be the best one, but I think that you do need someone who has less of an understanding but who's willing to learn more. So I hope that you'll vote for me. This is something that is important and something I'd like to explore further, and I think at the end of it I'll be a much better elected member and a more beneficial or more useful person to society, having gone through that process.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Now it's Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, my nieces and nephews are Indigenous, actually. I talked to my brother-in-law about this role, and he said, "Lily, please do it." You know, he said, "You've worked in the APY lands." I said, "Yeah, Nick, yeah, I've been in APY lands as a sanitation engineer, working with the communities." I reflected on the experience and work I did as a business development manager. I wrote a paper for a national conference in Western Australia about self-determination in the water sector. And that was about, in South Australia, there was a line that says, this is where the white people get their water and wastewater services, you know, and there's SA Water Services, that lot of people. And above that line, well, that's another department. And quick story, I was curious about this line. I said to my manager, "Why is there this line? I think this is wrong." And so on that basis, we worked together, and we convinced the government, state government, Department of State Aboriginal Affairs, let's work together. We have all these resources, capabilities in the water sector, scientists at Bolivar, we can help you. And that's what we did. We helped the people in the whole state, so everyone was treated equally in the water sector. Little story just to show you that I have worked with Indigenous people in bureaucracy, on the ground. As I said, I'm an auntie of Indigenous nephews and nieces. My nephew, in fact, is preparing a reconciliation action plan in his sector at the moment. So I'm very passionate about this. So I believe I have the right values, and I do hope that I have the skills and experience to contribute to this role effectively, and we don't end up with reports sitting on a shelf. And you know, it resonates a lot with me with what Councillor Helga Lemon was saying. You know, we need some real targets here. For example, SA Water has a target of 4% Indigenous employment in its organisation. That's just one example. And so we need to properly fund this. It's not going to be just a tick and flick exercise. You know, and we're not going to, and we're going to work with people. We're not going to impose a reconciliation action plan on people. And finally, it's a very important plan, and I'm really glad we've got the new CEO has had the experience with developing a plan in his previous council. So I do hope you feel I have the skills, experience and the correct values. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henschke. Now, Councillor Hubel.
Thank you all. I'm heartened, I think, by the desire around the table to be involved in this. If you asked me what I'm passionate about, I would say social justice. And I think that the status of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in Australia is one of the most shameful breaches of social justice in the world. I think this is one of the most important things that we can be doing. Look, I think I was going to talk about, the current state of things and the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, but I think we're all there. As an educator by trade, I've had quite a lot of self-exploration in this area. Coming to terms with my whiteness was something I was forced to do as a teenager at university. And it is something that in the education system I can say is, and in our national curriculums, is severely inadequate. The way that ATSI histories and stories and education is dealt with. I've worked in developing myself with Amnesty International and their work in Australia to make myself a better educator, that I can instruct young people about what it means to be, and let's be truthful, we're privileged white people, and what that means for our society. And that's, what's driven me on my journey. I've been involved in developing, the Reconciliation Action Plan at my own workplace. So I have utter passion for this, and I have experience, and I hope I get the opportunity to share that with the City of Burnside.
Thank Councillor Hubel. Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Look, I don't have any Indigenous credentials, for want of a better word, that have been discussed here already at all. A bit like Councillor Davis, I don't have a lot of, I have a little bit, but a lot of involvement on a day-to-day basis. Living in the eastern suburbs of Adelaide, that is the fact of the matter. So I don't have any of what the other people going up for this have. But I do think that's perhaps an advantage, because I feel that this plan, to mean anything after we do actually finish it, it needs to actually mean something and carry the 97.7% of Burnside that aren't Indigenous. We'll need to be talking to those people, and I think it's important that we all think this is important. Burnside actually is quite an important, I think, as an eastern suburb, affluent society. It's important that we do have a reconciliation action plan. It's wrong that we don't already have one, but that I don't think would be debated. But what's in it will have some tough decisions to be taken. There'll be, we'll want to set targets which won't necessarily be universally accepted. And I think it's important that the committee actually does look at that from a very broad and common sense way when those sorts of things are looked at. So I actually offer perhaps something different from everybody else in that I am more perhaps the person that we're talking to in regard to this this plan, rather than having an affiliation with the people we're recognising. So from that point of view, I do feel I'm a good option on this committee. I didn't come to this lightly. I'm sure Helga didn't line me up with her speech, but it did strike me. It does. It's not something that I was slightly surprised when I read it and felt so strongly about it. And I do have to admit to coming late to the party, but I did feel strongly about it because I think with a place like Burnside, it's going to have quite a lot of weight if we can get it right, and we can get it with enough guts in it that actually we'll be able to do things in the community with it, and that's what I bring. So I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Whilst we're getting some pieces of paper handed out, thank you, Wendy Matthews. Can I just recommend a really, really inspiring little YouTube TED Talk that I watched yesterday? It's called Australia We Need to Talk by Callie Jetta, an Indigenous woman from Western Australia. If you have a chance to look at that, it's only about 4 minutes. It is really inspirational, and I recommend it to anyone to watch. Australia We Need to Talk by Callie Jetta. Anyway, the instructions are... Oh, you want to do that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll just clarify the instructions.
Yes.
So we have 5 nominations. So as such, I now ask you to write down the three people that you wish to be on the committee. Then what will happen, we will count those and eliminate one nomination with the lowest number of votes, and then we'll go through the process again to determine our final incantation. Is everyone clear with that instruction?
Three names.
Three names.
Write down 3 names.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, just going through the papers. I have Piggott, Davis, Henschke. Cornish, Henschke, Hubel. Cornish, Hubel, Henschke. Cornish, Piggott, Hubel. Davis, Hubel, Cornish. Davis, Hubel, Henschke. Hubel, Henschke, Piggott. Cornish, Hubel, Davis. Cornish, Hubel, Henschke. Hubel, Cornish, Davis. Cornish, Henschke, Hubel. confirm the numbers. So Piggott is
Councillor Piggott on 3.
Yep.
Councillor Davis on 5. Councillor Henschke on 7. Councillor Hubel on 10. Councillor Cornish on 8.
Okay, just to clarify the final numbers there. Councillor Hubel on 10 votes, Councillor Henschke on 7 votes, Councillor Davis on 5 votes, Councillor Piggott on 3 votes, Councillor Cornish 8 votes. Therefore, Councillor Piggott is removed from the nomination process. And I would now ask that councillors undertake a second round whereby you are considering Councillors Hubel, Henschke, Davis and Cornish. And I'm looking for 3 names. So Councillor Piggott is removed? Yes.
You have to vote for 3 out of the 4 that's right.
Current resolution says 3.
Yeah, exactly. I think someone was trying to point that out.
Okay, I have Cornish, Hubel, Henschke. Cornish, Henschke, Davis. Davis, Cornish, Hubel. Cornish, Hubel, Henschke. Hubel, Henschke, Davis. Hubel, Cornish, Davis. Henschke, Cornish, Hubel. Hubel, Cornish, Davis. Hubel, Henschke, Cornish. Someone gave me first names. Hubel, Davis, Henschke. Davis, Cornish, Hubel.
Davis is 7. Hubel is 10. Henschke is 7. And Cornish is 9.
Therefore,
which means we do 12. So you need to put, and the one that's when you put the 2 names in.
yeah, okay.
And the one that's pulled, I think, is on the minute.
That's correct. It's correct. Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors.
We've got a couple of options, I think we could actually make it for. Or otherwise it's a name out of a hat.
That's right. Thank you, councillors. 3, Madam Mayor. The results of that ballot are Councillor Hubel 10, Councillor Henschke 7, Councillor Davis 7, Councillor Cornish 9. So I can declare that Councillor Hubel and Councillor Cornish are appointed. What the process will be now is that it will be a ballot, and the first, as per the rules, the first name to come out is eliminated. In the name
Before we do it, can we move that in addition to point 3 that the 4 people be nominated? So that 3 people be nominated plus, and point 5 that Councillor Davis be nominated as well? Because it's not contradictory to number 3.
If someone's willing to move that, that is appropriate.
I'm absolutely willing to move that. I think that's, this last one out is a cruel system. 4, you did say was probably a runner at the start. and I don't see it makes the committee, I mean, I'm happy to take that argument if that is the case, but I don't think that is the case, so I'm happy to move that way.
Just press your button.
Just a question though, is that not contrary to motion that we've already passed? Because part 3 said we would have 3 elected members.
We determined 3, but we're actually just going to have another one.
Yeah, so we're getting 3.
So we've elected the second. We could elect 3.
We could,
So,
yes.
Davis.
I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
Henschke, Hubel, and
I don't have any objections to having 4 people.
Also,
So we've got a motion.
Yeah, no, I think it's okay. So I just need a seconder for that. So,
It was moved Councillor Hughes, seconded Councillor Davey, that we accept the 4 named in the ballot, in the final leg of the ballot, to be on that committee.
so any discussion?
We've got a nomination, we've got a seconder. All in favour? Carried.
I've got a question. I have another question. Can we actually put the duration in this too? Is that possible? There is no duration.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I understand the intent. However, the duration to get to the point when you refer the plan to Reconciliation Australia essentially is an unknown. It could be a short period or a long period, depending on the time it takes to come
Can
to the
I ask
final
another
document.
question? It is not likely that these councillors are going to change. Now that they're on this until the plan is handed over. So can I...
Or
can
until
I-
they resign.
Can I, well, yes, but can I then say for the duration of this council?
Through Madam Mayor, you certainly can.
So I then move that these 4 be nominated for the duration of this council for this particular committee.
That's been moved, Councillor Lemon, so I need a seconder for that, please. Councillor Davis, thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Sorry, those against? Carried. Move to the last item, which is 17.1, Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I want to move the Burnside War Memorial Hospital report to the City of Burnside. That's for January to December 2019. And the key point that I'd like to raise is to congratulate David Parkin, our former mayor, who's been appointed as the Burnside Hospital Foundation Chair, which is the fundraising arm of the hospital, and it's a very significant appointment. He's on a committee that reports to the Board of Directors, and yes, it's a key appointment, so I'm very pleased that he is a local person with a lot of experience has been appointed. So I hope you'll support that.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Lemon. All those in favour? Carried. Does anyone have any other business?
Very quickly, I also believe that former Mayor Parkin has also been appointed to the Dog and Cat Management Board, which is also great to have Burnside representation on that. So if you have any dog and cat issues, send it to his former worship. He's actually the chair of the Dog and Cat Management Board, so that's a tremendous achievement, I think, and we should be very proud to have a former mayor on that board.
Right, there are no confidential items, and so I close the meeting at 9:43 p.m. And thank you. And hope you enjoyed. Hope the team does well in the competition and you bring a win back for yourselves, satisfaction-wise.